Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to do a little bit of mystery solving. Many of you know that I do primarily ancestral work, and ancestral work, I think, for me is also deity worship. It's working with the energies that created the ancestors that contribute to your spiritual gifts, as well as like working out the shadows of those that the ancestors that influence you, that have shadow influences, that's the negative stuff. And so every once in a while when I am doing this work, I'll come up and I'll see the ancestral gods are neither good nor evil in the like Western typical sense. Spiritual reality is the ecosystem, just like we're in an ecosystem materially, there's a spiritual ecosystem. And so sometimes I'll come and I'll see an ancestral god and I'm like, I don't know, like, is this a good or an evil energy? And I'll start to sort of sit and pay attention and listen, because in a similar way to what it meant to sort of cross spirits, there's something to learning the name of that energy that may have been an ancestral god where that name is lost. And so learning that name is sort of leaning into like, what are these characteristics? Like, what is being presented? What is the lesson here? How am I supposed to interact with this? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this part of the ancestral work that is enlightening, or is it part of the ancestral work that is uncovering and healing? And so this reading in particular, I feel comfortable enough with this energy to have a conversation and just see, and there's lots of protection with the temple here, and just see with the vision what comes up, because it's I would say it's like one of the most powerful energies I've ever encountered. And with the venom here, we're gonna learn something. So if you're afraid of energies that you're not familiar with, or you don't want to interact with a reading where there's an energy that, there's a question about, first of all, I think it's important to learn what it is to interact with an energy where there's a question about, because some of the worst energies show up as like shining lights of glory, So it's like really important to know that like in an ecosystem, we develop our muscles and our discernment through process of investigating that, I feel safe and everything is contained. And before we even started, I did what I needed to do to sort of make sure that there's no bleed over, or that this is sort of like more like you're watching and not like I'm interacting with your energy so much. But I do think that there is something to uncovering a mystery, letting you watch me uncover a mystery, and seeing what the process is like when it comes to encountering an energy. If you're sensitive to subtle energies, you feel things, you interact with things, what does it mean to really investigate this and find answers through interactive prayer with your highest self? And with the venom, the judge, and the temple, all of these being part of what we see. So that process of revelation, when you see something, you're like, wow, that's a powerful God, but it's without a name. And these things are neither good nor evil. You enter at that place in the archetype where you are, where your growth will benefit from, where that energy's growth will benefit from in relationship to you. Like, these things are more complicated and expansive than we really understand. If it's there to be worked out, pretty much. So when we see something with our physical eyes, we're looking and saying, oh, that, height, size, general sense of their health, whatever it is that we see when we, encounter a person. When we are picking up on an energy and it's muddy and it's not clear and we can't get a fix, like, it's not an energy of like envy or jealousy or greed. It's not some variation of hope or love or, sustenance. It's got a musk to it. How many of you who are sensitive to energy understand what I'm saying when I say it has a musk to it? So this energy has a musk to it, which is, I think, that venom that I'm picking up. It means it's not completely and totally clear. And purification, in the sense that we have been taught when it comes to energies and enlightenment, that's something that, again, in an ecosystem, like, we have to be careful of the information that we are programmed by, because it has a purpose that we might not be in alignment with. And so the venom, it speaks of like, there's something about this energy that requires attention. There's vengeance, that it wants vengeance, right? It's got some darkness. It has some unfinished business. Venom is a poison. It's carrying some form of poison. Does that mean it's evil? Maybe not. There's a judgment here. especially around the temple. And like temple means a lot of different things. In this particular deck, it's like I always think of the temple and the body as being synonymous. Your temple, your body, you know, like the thing that you walk around with, what you pay attention to, what you bring into yourself, what you worship is going to be the temple that you're creating in the body. You know, your inner world is created around certain things. And so with the Seven of Wands, there's a defense. There's a judgment here around that temple. And this energy represents that. Six of Wands with the Nine of Cups. And the Devil. Woohoo! So it's a spooky dooky kind of a feeling to a certain extent. Again, I don't think you're going to pick up on it because I've got big old shields. And I don't want you to. I don't want you to lean in that way. But I do want you to listen and observe and think about the fact that, you know, when it comes to an energy that it's not easy to identify, the first thing that we want to know is that the universe that we are in does, in fact, have powers and principalities that are stronger than you. Always. Absolutely. A virus is a power and a principality that is potentially stronger than you. Going outside means that you could encounter a virus. Now, that doesn't mean that you will, and it's a virus to stay inside to avoid a virus. And so when we think about like risks and mitigating them, in an ecosystem, there are sharks in the water. There are primordial energies with great power that are not inherently harmless. And so whenever we encounter a great power, the first thing that we're going to feel is like, if something is not harmless, if something could conceivably harm us, a lot of us are trained to think of that as a threat. That thing is foreign. I don't know what it is. It's big. It's powerful. It could overpower me. That feeling of it can overpower me. That's not necessarily a reason to run and hide. An elephant can overpower you, but it's not necessarily a danger to you unless you get too close to it. So when we're looking at these energies of the other world, I want you to think about the fact that in an ecosystem, you're looking with a different set of eyes and a different kind of world, right? And you are feeling with your feelers. You're not diagnosing with logic. When you feel with your feelers, it's going to feel a certain way. And so this energy feels musky to me. But it also feels like there's a tremendous amount of love with the Nine of Cups. Even though that love might not be perfectly pure, there's some cause for defense. The divination here and what we're seeing in terms of the vision, what am I looking at? And whether what am I looking at is a boogeyman or a job that you don't know if you like it or not, or a person that you're not sure of. We're feeling with the inner world feelers. And we're diagnosing, not from a place of knowledge, really, because it's we have questions, and not from a place of conviction or certainty, because an ecosystem and all of the beings within it aren't necessarily harmless. But we're developing our strength, we're developing our intuition. A good intuition with our ancestors was the ability to travel. A bad intuition was you can't really go very far from the village because you can get eaten because you don't feel and sense the animals and how far away they are. A good hunter could sense an animal before it even smelled it or felt it or heard it. And so with that venom, like the musk of this god without a name is not pure sunshine, and there is some entanglement with my ancestry. Now, when you encounter a boogeyman, and nightmares, when you encounter a boogeyman in, there's a haunty, spooky something in the woodshed, whatever that is. A lot of times these are echoes, these are imprints. It's something that needs attention, there's an energetic need to pay attention to that area. There's rage and anger and fear that hasn't been properly expelled, and it's stuck in some kind of often it's like a portal loophole that you can kind of feel as you walk through, and it can affect you and can even cling. So energy, when you move through a swamp and you pick up seaweed, we need to cleanse, obviously, but when there is some sort of an entanglement, some unanswered question, maybe it's an unfinished story, maybe it is an ancient curse brought on something, by something, and there are generational curses. Alcoholism is a really good example of something like that. But there's more nuance, there's all sorts of stuff. So with the Seven of Wands, there's a cause to be aware that you can't just charge at an energy that you sense, when it's really big and powerful like this. And again, it might be an ally. It might be a very helpful thing. But you kind of have to know that, you know, if you get into the vicinity of an elephant where it's like baby is right there, and you know, it's gonna like freak out at you. So you know, this is something where it's like, you know, soft pedal. When something is really spooky, you know, and there's some kind of relationship, you can't get rid of it, you can't figure out why it's there. Or maybe it's not spooky, it's like really appealing, but it seems to have like negative effects. Or maybe it's not totally negative or totally good. The judge here with the hanged one means like there is, if it shows up and it's there, there is pause, you know, like there's cause for pause. There's something here to work out. If you find yourself in a position where you can't get out of a situation, you can't get out of a job, you can't get out of a house, you can't get out of a relationship, literally there's no tactical way forward for the various reasons that it ends up being like a, you know, bound arms and feet, you know, even if that's literal shackles, like there are circumstances with the hanged one that you are stuck with. And so the judge says, you're going to have to work this out. You're going to have to deal with this. And it's related to the temple. Now, the temple is going to be your body. The temple is going to be your lifespan. The temple is going to be where you put your attention and your energy and the things that you're worshiping, the things that you merge with when you think about nothing but that thing. What really is that? You know, why? What's driving that? And what are we making of ourselves through the pursuit of like our interests? What we eat, we become. Energies that we participate with, we embody. It's very simple. It's a very simple formula. That's not possession. That's just like when you have sugar, it affects the way that you feel. That's being in an ecosystem, swimming in a pool. So what does it all mean, you know, with the temple and the Six of Wands there? Those are the answers that we're seeking. And so I want to look with the bottom of the deck. You know, this focus of this reading is going to be, there is an entanglement rooted in Nine of Cups, some form of love. But that love with the Nine of Cups can be like an infatuation. It can be limerence. It can be like it's indulgent. Often Nine of Cups in the shadow is going to be a kind of addiction. And the devil right there says like, you know, let's look at the type of love that this is. There's a lot of people who have experienced in one way or another, or continue to experience in one way or another, types of love where it's like a drug and it's like an opium and it's this electric experience of like, you know, wild self-abandonment, because as soon as that drug wears off, you're dealing with a tyrant, and then it's tyrant management for like moments of like whatever that ends up being. Like Nine of Cups and the devil is a funky energy where yes, it's love, but the nature of this love is binding in some ways, or the nature of this love is keeping you from a Ten of Cups experience in some way. And the Ten of Cups experience is complete and total emotional fulfillment. The Nine of Cups experience is emotional fulfillment that costs you that. It's a lot of emotional fulfillment, but it costs you just that 10th cup. So I want to look at these things because venom is, again, it's a type of poison. There's cause to be concerned. A god is going to be the presence of something primordial and powerful that needs to be attended to in order for whatever it means to proceed. Now, this reading is not a collective wide reading, which is like unusual for me, but I think that it's important to learn how to encounter energies and think about them. And seeing people do it and seeing people make an example of what that means with mortification here is a very good practice, I think. I think it's helpful. I think it's how we teach. I think it's how witches teach in some ways. Let's go ahead and get, yep, this is interesting. And it's interesting. So there's that. Mercury. All right, so it's about, there's communication here. And I think when we think about ancestral work with this conjunction here, this is the infinity symbol. Every time I talk about the infinity symbol, it's because I'm seeing the same vision. The shadow and the light aspects of an archetype is, if this is a lifespan, if this is an archetype itself, if this is a god itself, outside of the confines of time, what that ends up being here is the process of not knowing oneself into knowing oneself. Ignorance into clarity. That's how the growth arc happens, right? That's even like problem adaptation. That's how evolution takes place. And since we are creatures of expansion and eternal evolution, and Earth in and of itself is a place where the physical manifestation of evolution is taught through our physical life. Like, this is evolution. This is a planet of evolution. What does that mean? It's good or it's bad? No, it's evolving. It has both good and bad. And it's also a sorting system. What we eat, we become, right? And that process of mortification and that coagulation, there's, it's like we have a lot of freedom in what we entertain and what we participate with and what we bring into the world. And that also expands that archetypal structure that we are forever going to have in one way or another as an aspect of ourselves. And so that ignorance of self into clarity around self is a process of discovery that we get to take the journey on when it comes to this lifespan. And if we fail at the end of our lifespan, then this archetype gets tossed and we go back in and we experience something new. And we don't take that archetype. We don't embody it. We don't keep it. But that's, that place where we leave that samsara, which again, like, this is really interesting the way this is coming through, is a place of self-actualization where the form holds. It takes because it's been refined, and that ignorance has turned into clarity, and it's fixed. It fixes. It's no longer the seeing the egg. When an egg is fertilized, it starts to go and separate. It just folds. I wish I had the technical language for this. So I'm seeing a vision. It's like the cell splits, right? And it goes and it becomes like and think of each one of those splits as a lifespan until it takes a permanent hold, until it finds that place, until it's embodying a structure that keeps. And it's a beautiful thing. And the gods, like the energies of the gods, and especially this god, I think this is a gatekeeper. That's what that is. No offense. I mean, I'm just, as I figure it out. Gatekeeper is very powerful, by the way. So we're encountering a gatekeeper, this venom, this defense, this mortification. You are, with the judge, stuck with what you embody, what you brought into yourself, what you took on, became, operated with and through. It was informed by you, but you were informed by it. And this is kind of the process of like the creation of these temples, the victory around communication and the creation of these temples, that we, for a while, have a material body. And when we move on from that place, what is developed, we are either, that's what we have, that's where we found ourselves. We either know ourselves or we don't, or we come back in, after that life review. Nope, I want to know myself. I really do. Boop, let's try it with a different form. Maybe that one will stick. And so that's a weird vision that I'm getting. I don't know if there's any religious belief or theology around something like that. There might be. If not, it's new and it's coming through. And a lot of stuff that comes through for me is new. So a gatekeeper energy. There's great love, but there's also mortification. Let's get some cards and find out what that's about. This is an interesting reading. It's kind of about to snow out here, like the sky is doing like this thing. Get some more cards. It's like very subdued. It's like calm. It's almost sleepy in a way. The vision. So what am I looking at when I see this mortification? The mortification is actually a process of, it is the butterfly to the goop, to the new creature, and the wings pop out, right? Mortification is the goop, the middle, the moment before that transformation takes place. Again, I'm seeing these visions around form and then finding form. No form, formlessness, finding form. So that mortification, again, has a lot to do with is that form going to hold under pressure? So that's really interesting, because I'm seeing this evolution here of the soul or the being, and it's born onto the earth, and it's, this cacophony of traits that are inherited, and with those traits there are stories, and with those stories there are aspects of karma, and with those aspects of karma there are opportunities to work it out and do it in a different way. With that expansion there is encountering new genes. It's a kaleidoscopic Jacob's ladder of sort of things that happen. And we can get stuck with the Hanged Man. We can stuck into one story, one way of being, one perspective, one form without growth. We get to a point, there's no more growth. This is who I am. And what's coagulated here is going to be everything that has contributed to that. And now this is the final destination and the final conclusion, because instead of growing and changing, there is some sort of like hanged one position. Like, this is what it is. And it's very hard to move because it coagulates. Coagulation is like, think about stuff like mixing stuff in tar, and then it hardens and it all becomes a part of the same like hardened thing. And there's not a lot of movement with that. And so this energy here, you know, I think that there's something to when we encounter battles and difficulties and austerity and hardship, what's going to stand? What's going to persevere? What are you going to move forward with? When we enter into this, like, you know, liminal space and we start to encounter subtle energies, they're giving us information. And this energy is like a gatekeeping, like keeper of the gate. So it's not like pure, you know what I mean? It definitely holds some level of venom. It's going to test the shape. It's going to test the form. Is this who you are? Is this what you want? Like, the vision is refined through question and answer. You know, it feels good, it doesn't feel good. It feels comfortable, it doesn't feel comfortable. The presence of fear in certain circumstances is information of like, maybe we don't run at this energy. Maybe we sit back and we think about it. What is the gatekeeper telling us here with the Seven of Wands and the mortification? Let's get some cards. The love there, you know, is interesting too at the bottom of the deck. Stories. Okay, I like that. What are the chances that you can see these cards? Let's bring this up a little bit. There we go. Venom, Seven of Wands, mortification, gatekeeping, the keeper of the gate. Got some keeper of the gate energy here. Keeper of the gate energy is, again, it's like, if we never like F with the keeper of the gate, we don't get past the gate and we stay stuck. That with the Judge, the Hanged One, and the coagulation. So that mortification, that demand for a willingness towards transformation and change, which is, again, that's evolution, adaptation, a willingness to adapt into, you know, to bring in some different aspect or some different element on a story. So you have a situation, you don't know the answer. You don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know the name of the demon. You have no choice but to face whatever the heck you're looking at, because there it is, and there's a reason. You know, there's nothing that's going to stick around that doesn't have a reason. That's just, I have found in my work that is always true, right? There's always something there. And so for you with the Temple, the Six of Wands, actually, I'm feeling in my palm. I always feel in my palm. There's always a something that happens, and I always know exactly, like, it's always like a symbol, like there's theft, right? And so, like, one of the reasons why we have to develop a really firm sense of self, one of the reasons why we really invest in knowing who we are and spend time with that inner voice, developing that inner voice, so that when we speak, it comes out as our, you know, like, that stuff is so important, because if we are too porous, a lot of things can, like, just shapeshift right in. We can channel anything. And so when it comes to the venom, the Seven of Wands, like I'm seeing, like, the next shiny thing, like every little shiny thing, like self-abandoning for every little shiny thing. Whenever there's like a drop of a compliment, a drop of a kindness, you know, just abandoning the post of protecting yourself. It's a porousness, or just anything, like open season kind of. And so that energy of the venom, that energy that is like, not like, you know, it brings challenges. It sort of makes you question the stories that you were told. It gives you an opportunity to refine who you're going to be, how you're going to show up, despite whatever, you know, like, you know, how you're going to work with your gift. It's refining your gift. It's refining your magic. So that's what I'm picking up on with this energy. And that tells me something, you know, and I think for everybody, you know, we have some version of this energy with us. Every time we level up, there's like a gatekeeper there. And that gatekeeper is going to say, are you sure you know what you want? Are you sure you want this? Are you sure this is who you are? You know, is that really the person that you love? And here are these things that are going to come up, and they're going to challenge this story, and you're going to have to, and it's going to, and there's that mortification, like, you know, it's an encounter with the death of something, and then the transformation, and you're in that process of goop. That's what I'm getting from that card right now. This whole deck is, you know, very interesting for me, because it's a defense around forcing certain changes. You know, it feels like venom because it's an attack on whatever story you've adopted as your ideal, or what you want, or who you think you are. But it comes in to remind you, nope, not that, gut check. Nope, not that, whack to the head. And sometimes this is a rejection of others. Sometimes this is a harsh word that really lands. Sometimes this is a closed door. No, you don't get to pass. You do not get this opportunity. Sometimes it's a rejection. And we interact with these things every minute of every day. Sometimes it's a hard life story that we have to accept, that we can't force the world to be fair to us. We can't force justice, but we have to move through that. We can't coagulate at, I can't do anything, I am powerless, because that becomes us. And that's, you know, that's a really harsh truth. And in the spiritual communities and the prosperity gospels and everything that says that we are not in an ecosystem, we are not around predators, we are not around real evil, it's all love and light, and all you have to do is force that in yourself and never deal with all of the darkness, then that's coagulation and a type of fear and a type of paralysis and a type of like drive, you know. And so the temple, you know, your body, you will have victory in this process of communication with yourself, from I don't know who I am to this is how I am. I am embodying myself, and it's solid because the stories that I'm telling myself, or that I understand, or that I see, hold. And there's a testing ground around what you're adopting and what you're letting inform you and what you are becoming. And it does require some level of belief, you know. Predestination is real. Right? Listen, predestination is real. Why is predestination real? Predestination is real because you don't control who you were born to. You don't control what resources you will be born into, and you don't control the opportunities that those resources will provide. You are predestined to a certain story about overcoming a certain situation that you inherit. That's real. That's not, you're not negotiating with certain things. You're not negotiating with like certain aspects of the body. So we fight with our lives. I should be this. It should look like that. This should be my circumstance. That should be my outcome. This is unfair. These are the stories. And this is the energy that I'm encountering. I'm like, it's the God. And so it's an ancestral God. And what this ancestral God does, one of its properties, one of its characteristics, one of its jobs, and gods have jobs, they embody some aspect of functioning within the whole, is to test your mettle. You know, and for me, it's to test my mettle. But I think everyone, when we come up against a nightmare, something, a boogie woogie, there's a purpose. And so this purpose for this gatekeeper in particular, and we're learning just about what the gatekeeper is, you know, is here to challenge the stories that are operating like a venom that would lead to coagulation and being in a stuck position because of a judgment that is keeping the body from its liberation and communication that would liberate it and create of it the temple that brings us from a place of shadow, garbage dumping everything, stories, but what's true, you know, into clarity, no longer being stuck in a position of like, you know, coagulation, other things influencing you into a gridlock, and moving into this place where the body and the lifespan and the person that you are is celebrated. There's victory, there's recognition, there's communication from that place of clarity, and that form holds. That form holds against the stories. It becomes something where there is a 10 of Cups experience because there's no shackle to something here with the devil. So let me get more cards because this is coming out like just fluid. It's coming out like fluid. Daybreak. Breakthrough. Daybreak. Break out. These are all words that indicate it's really hard to do. You know, like something's in the way, which is why there's the break. You know, the night we can't really see how to overcome some of this stuff, and so we need the light. We need the sun to come up. We need that day to break. We need that that ability to see through some of the stories, some of the determinations, some of the fixed things that are operating like the devil, like shackles on our growth. And we do have to let certain things die. People, relationships, bad ideas, bad habits, and we're going to ask our guides what that ends up being. In fact, I'm going to ask this God, because now that I've figured it, like now that we know the name and the function a little bit, we can kind of work with what it means to tap into that power within ourselves. And so now this is a God without a name. It's an ancestral God without a name. I think it's Celtic. I'll be honest, I just couldn't get that vibe. And that ancestral God without a name is like the gatekeeper. You shall not pass unless you are able to break down the story that confines you and break free into like that form that is more powerful than all of the stories that we rely on. It instructs the form. It's not informing it. Like, okay, so it's like when we get that samsara is like you are within the body of an archetype that is working itself out. Outside of it is like you have become you have taken form. This gatekeeper does act kind of like a lover in some senses, and challenges these stories about the self. And when something new, something novel is born, I'm seeing this energetically, a new form that a form that cannot be contained by it. That's why it's a gatekeeper. So I guess it's like the snake's outer rim. The form it is thrown up. It throws it up. It's spit out of its throat. I'm seeing with the venom. It's something that comes out of it. It is born of it. So that form can no longer conform under the working out what itself is. And it moves into like that next moment and spits itself out. And so so this is for all of us in terms of like, what is, like, that's it seems gross when I explain it like that, but I'm seeing this digestion, and if something is no longer contributing to the health of the whole, or it's no longer a part of what works in the body, it's becoming its own form, its own new thing. It comes out, mortification, and what is born of that process is a new story, a new sense of self, a new expansion. Oh, weird, interesting. I just see this creature. I guess I'm seeing like an infinite creature that shapeshifts for sure, but it like brings into itself. And when that thing that it brings into itself doesn't conform to its ideas about what that thing should be. Okay, so I'm seeing a relationship. All right, bear with me. This is shapeshifting like crazy. When you meet somebody, say you meet another person, you have ideas about who they are and who they are going to be to you. But that encounter and actually meeting them and getting to know them shows you that some of your ideals, some of your hopes, some of what you thought of them isn't really true, because they are manifesting who they truly are. And now you're dealing with a relationship between two people, not one person and their expectation of another person. And so when that happens, it becomes a true representation of relating. It becomes a true two different people and embodying two different things, like having a relationship. It's a graduation from pregnancy, where something is within you, to it takes on a form of its own. And so that's whatever this is, I don't know. And so with the Judge here and the Hanged One and the coagulation and the daybreak, it's breaking out of old forms, breaking out of a story that no longer holds it. So like when somebody no longer meets your expectations, they have broken out of the story that you were holding it with. And so this is a whole process related to whatever this vision is, because we're not there all the way, and related to what this devil is, that well, the Judge here, we're going to get some more cards, because no, we're going to go over here. I'm going to get more card of that, and I'm going to get a couple. Getting instructions. All right, so that's the guide. Yep, getting guidance and nurture. So this energy is coming through with road trip and nurture, basically to say, listen, I'm here to nurture your growth. I'm here to care for you. I'm here to usher you through this journey. And so I am seeing like Hecate, Hermes sort of energy represented. Again, it's a nameless god, so this is going to be the one that like takes you from one place to another. They're nurturing you on this journey to become who you are. Whatever is poisoning you, like getting you to spit it out and like congeal. is also a part of their evolution and what it means to relate to you as you become mature. You become your own person. You become your own form. You're no longer within its body. You're now in relationship to it. And the gatekeeping around that has to do with breaking free from this Judge card. I'm going to get more cards. Oh, this is a little bit long. Sorry if it's kind of slow. This is, you know, when I sat down, I'm like, well, this isn't going to move. So I gotta investigate. And we're going to investigate together. So it's a God that will not let you move through without having a story that is in one way or another true about yourself. Knowing oneself. To do that, you have to break free from these stories that hold you captive. And you have to have discernment with the Judge there about what those stories that hold you captive are. So now we're going to be really brave. And I don't want to say that this reading is purely about me, because it's some ancestral God that doesn't have a face, that's talking to all of us with the Six of Cups here. That's family, that's nostalgia. So even though I didn't know what it was, I wasn't going to be able to get rid of it until I actually let it speak. And some of that, like Anana, you know, when Anana descends to Ereshkigal and she has to listen to Ereshkigal speak, that's another really good myth that speaks of this process of discovery where, like, that's something scary, spooky. What is it? Are you going to run and jump and skip? I'm going to know who you are. You're going to love me. No. Caution. This thing is, it will spank you. You know, you're going to have reverence. You know, you're going to be aware that change needs to happen at the level of this coagulation. And so it's like when you see the spooky, you're like, oh, wait, there's something, this is an initiation. More times than not, it's initiation. With nurture and road trip and everything that I'm getting, a lot of times something that scares us is there to, like, challenge us a little bit. And it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's also not something that we, like, sort of half-cocked, you know, like that. I just always want to put that in there, even though it's a guide. It is a guide. It's a beautiful guide. There's a lot of love there. But some of these guides and some of what it is to connect with ancestral gods is to not expect, like, just childhood. Although you go to the gods with your inner child. Your inner child it's your inner child that speaks to the gods. Even your inner adolescent that speaks to the gods. And it also is your inner crone that speaks to the god. But all of these times that you go for the gods, you speak to them with some level of respect, which also means some humility. And humility is another way of saying vulnerability. You're not putting on, like, you know, flashies. You're not going up with, like, you know, the shield of, like, I'm so cool. Like, you're not, you know, like, when you encounter a god, you have reverence, you know. And what humility looks like is not fear, you know, not avoidance. But that inner Judge with the Six of Cups, expectations, nostalgia. This is what I thought it was going to be. Ace of Cups is great love. Queen of Pentacles is great blessing. Temperance is, again, an angelic energy that's here to help. And with the Tower, sometimes the angelic energy that's here to help brings a tower. How many people who have lived through a tower thank it and are glad that it happened? And how many people have found that the Tower is the greatest guide that has ever found them? And so now we get a better sense of this is a destroyer god, kind of. But it's a destroyer god that comes to break up and, like, the bottom of the deck energy here is vision. And the mentor. You know, it comes to help you refine that vision. That vision is about your becoming in the mountain there. You know, calling you forward into this greater sense of self. Teaching you. And so there's an ancestral god, at least that I'm encountering, that seems to be some sort of gatekeeper. And when I see samsara, I'm not really talking about, like, this is the snake. If it's like in a circle and then it twists on itself, like with the darkness, trying to figure out, you know, how it can get at that light, and the light's sort of repelled by the darkness, and then this atom is created, and then matter happens in the exchange of the tension here. And so it's not necessarily like, oh, you graduate and you get to be, like, so amazing, but we go through, every time we die and be reborn, every time we go through a process of mortification, what is reborn is refined, it is adapted, it is evolved. And so that process is about gaining strength. It's about getting access to our gifts. It's about strengthening our gifts. And the breakthrough comes when we stop cursing you know, the life that we have, the person that we are. Yes, we learn through like archetypes and finding archetypes and, you know, embodying archetypes and channeling archetypes. But this energy comes in as like a defense and a nurturer. So what does this guide want to tell us today? You know, because this is a really interesting reading. I wasn't sure what to expect. Because, you know, sometimes there'll be an energy that I'm like, okay, you demand an audience. You want to be heard. You want to be understood. And so this ancestral guide is coming in to say that, you know, there's a role to Ace of Cups, the love of gods, the love of the God, you know, in establishing all of us with the Queen of Pentacles and what it means to bring in angelic assistance. Temperance is an angel that brings balance. So the Tower that is coming to shake things up with this daybreak, to allow the sun to rise. Let me learn a little bit about that. I'm going to get something to drink. I heard the word self-care very loud. I heard the word inspires. This energy inspires self-care. Be free from judgment. Okay, we have judgment. We have be free from judgment. So I hear a cop car out behind me. I don't know if you hear the siren going off. This fear you're going to be judged. This fear you're going to get caught. This fear that the cops are coming. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hearing the sirens. I don't know if you can hear them. But with daybreak, break free of this sort of like, you know, this coagulation. For someone, hiding and fear of being caught and seen is a big deal. And by someone, I mean, I don't know why it's coming up for me because I'm dealing with this energy. Six of Cups, something from childhood, some kind of nostalgia. Six of Cups can also be a past life. So if you've been judged harshly or you've been misjudged, I've been misjudged and judged harshly. You know, that I can say for myself. So that can kind of keep us from ever feeling like we can be free. That can keep us from sharing our love and sharing our wisdom and sharing ourselves openly. That can keep us guarded. We can be coagulated by defenses and a fear that someone's going to take our freedom. You know what I mean? The cop car is significant. Someone's going to take from us. Someone's going to steal. Power and might be free from judgment. Whatever that judgment is, this guide and this God has something to say about it. Because with this victory over that nonsense through communication and this purification of the temple and the guidance here, that's what your trust is. You're being guided from I don't know to like, yeah, there it is. And we all are. I'm opening this up. The way that this is coming through, this is for all of us. Even though I'm not tapping into your energy directly, because with an energy that I don't know about, I'm not going to open that canopy. But I'm also not going to show up. And when I do show up, we're going to do a little lesson here. So this is still for you. I'm just not tapping directly into your energy the way I normally would. Protection. I'm protecting. Let's take a look and see what this temple is. Unguarded. Trust the unexpected. As I talk about perspective as protection, you know, like I love getting caught like right in the middle of like, oh, well, I don't trust it. Hand of fire, stoke your inner flame, and enchantment. Use your words consciously. Let's see what we're doing here. This is about trust. Trust and being free from judgment are very similar, if not the same thing. When you don't have to judge whether you're safe or not because there's mom or dad that's there, then you can kind of be unguarded. So being unguarded in some respects is dependent on a knowledge that there's something that protects you, something that protects this process of purification, something that will bring victory around the communication that is guiding you into this place of self-knowledge. And it's moving you out of those childhood influences of the judge that got you stuck, like all gunked up, and your formation can coagulated with something that is keeping you from total daybreak and breaking free. And so it's a false judgment that you are somehow not protected. Okay, so this is very interesting, and I hope you guys are finding it as interesting as I am, because on the one hand, this energy says, you know, if something crappy happens, it's not because you didn't know better and you didn't think better and you didn't make a better decision. It's because I brought in the crappy thing that happened to refine who you were and break those stories, those curses over your life. I brought those towers. The towers didn't come arbitrarily. That does not indicate that you are unprotected. So this is a protecting God who brings the venom that hits your life so that you can learn what you need to learn. And it's not your enemy. And so when we have an energy that's a spooky, it's not there to destroy or harm you. It's there for you to investigate and learn from. And in this case, this is a cool ancestral energy, definitely feeling Celtic vibes. The closer I get to seeing this thing clearly, the more I'm like, that's a Celtic energy. That's a Celtic God. It, you know, God and Goddess, I want to just get in here as a person who works in the deity field day in and day out. At the level of God, that deity plane, gender is something that is just very fluid, okay? So how you're going to be looking at this, I'm just like seeing this thing move through a million shapes. The shape-shifting, the shape-shifting Celtic God. And so that venom, that musk, no, it's not completely harmless, but its harm is instructive. Its harm is about establishing you. And not just establishing you in the life that you're living, but establishing what it means for you to break through the levels. Think of samsara as like an onion with each level. You know, each level represents some form of evolution that needs to happen. And so 6 of Cups, the Judge, the Hanged One, coagulation, daybreak, and be free of judgment. I want more on that. I would like some more on that. Enchanted encounter, indeed. Yes, it is. And the tranquil oasis, be at peace. All right, so this is okay, so a lot of energy apply. A lot of people right now, a lot of us, are in some terrified state. And the reason that we're in a terrified state is because the tower is falling. The tower is going to fall. The tower has been going to fall. And as the tower's falling, the land, the foundation, the ground that you are standing on shakes every time. So whatever you're standing on, if it is not sturdy, if it has foundation issues, if it's a story that does not hold your faith, if it's a story that does not bear itself to be true to who you really are and what you're really meant to do, it will be confronted, and that won't hold. You won't feel secure. And so we're in this shake it up, shake it up, shake it up time in the world that we're in, and it's very scary. And in a lot of places, it's very dangerous, and it's a new experience for many people who haven't, had their eyes open to just how much, persecution there is in a world of false privilege. So there's a lot here about what people are feeling with the Tower card. But this energy is coming in with a very clear message. And I think the energies that are around us, they all represent different ways of working with us. And one of the main things that we're seeing here is if it's happening and it's terrible, it is not equal abandonment. Bad things happening does not equal abandonment. Bad things happening does not equal you are hated by the divine. Bad things happening does not equal you are doomed. Bad things happening means you are part of a transformation, that who you are meant to be is being defended by the process of the things that are not meant for you being taken away, stripped down, confronted by. And the stories that you are telling about, your safety and what should and should not be and what is and isn't are confronted by what is. And what is going to contribute, and you contribute toward this thing loves you. It's establishing you. And everyone has these gods. These archetypes take different forms, but every person has an array of them. So the enchanted encounter, I am surrounded by friends, family, animals, and nature. I connect with the world around me, and I am nurtured by these enchanted encounters. I am loved and accepted within my community. I am not alone. Safe. Trust. If it's a bad thing that happened, there's lesson in it. It's moving you towards this experience of yourself as being able to feel safe. You are guided. You don't have to be guarded. You can trust the unexpected. You don't have to be 5 steps ahead in case that one thing or that other thing happened. If it fell through, there was good reason for it. If it made you pivot, if it forced you into a type of movement, if it even forced your inner space into a type of movement where you stopped investing so heavily in something so that alchemy could readjust. If it closed a door and said it was going to open another, it was because it was redirecting. Like, that's all that this is. There's nothing stable really being built with a tower around us. And so if it's wobbly, you know, like, we trust that, you know, the tranquil oasis. I design my tranquil space. Just as meditation quiets the mind, a tranquil space brings peace to my environment. I simplify and organize my surroundings to cultivate an environment of peace. I am relaxed and at ease in my body, and my home is a tranquil oasis, unguarded. If we are guided from darkness and something's holding our hands into a light, and everything that we encounter, we're supposed to feel it and be like, oh, that's that. Now I know that. I can feel it. I'm always going to have a relationship with what it is to have, like, learned these things. The stoke your inner flame and the use your words consciously with enchantment. And we have enchanted encounter. This energy is enchanting. It can bring you into different dimensions. It can show you different aspects of self. It can bring magic into your life. You're not alone. You are helped. You are assisted. This entire message from start to fear, you know, over here with the venom, from start to finish is addressing fear with the vision. And this energy is saying, if you're afraid of it, then you're underestimating my power. You're underestimating my protection. You're underestimating my influence. And you're underestimating that this notion of if it doesn't feel good, you're being punished. If it doesn't feel good, then you're learning something. And you're expanding and you're growing. And none of us want to be in an unpleasant situation. None of us want predestination. Because some of that predestination means that we're born someplace that we don't want to deal with those genes. We don't want to deal with those traits. We don't want to be in this family. We don't want to be in this country. We don't want to be in this situation. We don't want to have to live through the story. We don't want to have to contribute to it. We don't want to have to energetically contribute to it. Does that mean, like, go out and, you know, preach on the corner, everybody change? No. We are in the body of the whole. Your energy is very important with the sickness of and the health of the whole. And the sickness and the health of your whole contributes to the health of the whole. It's like, what's going on with the alchemy in there? This is where we're freeing ourselves. This is where we can free ourselves. And it's not easy, but this is like, so I came into this room, I sat down and I'm like, oh, don't have time for this. You know what I mean? Like, that, you know, I'm not going to open up that canopy. I'm not going to connect with the, you know, the broader energies, but I am going to move through the process of what it means to discover what I'm dealing with, get a name for the God, or, you know, by name, I mean description, characteristics, understanding. It's going to become clearer. It is clearer. I'm going to see it. I'm seeing it. It's important for me to do this in front of you, because I think that the process is, you know, instructive. So with stoke your inner flame and use your words consciously. What are the words that run through your head? What does it mean when those words run through your head? What are they meant to communicate? There's been words that have been running through my head with the energy of play. I make time for play. I nurture my inner child as I play. I am renewed with the energy of play. I cultivate an environment of fun at work, at home, and with my friends. You know, and that doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen easily. It's because there's not a feeling of safety. There is guarded. There is not trust. And so this energy is really, you know, it's definitely speaking to me about trusting it. But I think that the unnamed God, you know, that we all have some form of an unnamed God that watches over our development, that helps us through our transformations. You know, there's a job there that is being done with the lifespan and that we are moving through. There's a job that we are meant to do. There's a journey that we are on. And this is a message that says, you know, if on the journey you are encountering things that scare you, circumstances that you don't want to be in and that you don't want to have to live with, there are guides that are there to hold your hand and bring you through that process of discovery, and also provide unexpected income. And they do this not by giving you like gifts of splendor. Here, you know, there's the sweepstakes winning. That means the gods love you. No, wealthy man on the bottom of the deck. The thoughts and the unexpected income here kind of speak to the way that our guides can bless us. Our guides can bless us through inspiration. Our guides can bless us through the people that we encounter when we're experiencing others. Not always. Sometimes we have huge shields up. I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to be blessed by you. I hate you. You know, think about all the people that you encounter, and think about the fact that our ancestors would often not meet more than like 100 people in their lifetime. That was the size of the village. It was nowhere, literally. It was a time when there was nothing. So like when we think about like all of our like status, like, well, you know, who's going to help me? How am I going to be helped? Like, you know, who's going to give me? It's actually not. Like, your guides will bless you abundantly in talent. That's a good example of who's blessed by the gods. Do they have tons of money? No. They have talent, right? That's a blessing. They are being blessed. Why are they being blessed? This mortification, round and round, that process. The stories that contain them don't, and they're moving on, and they're in that whatever. We all expand and evolve. Does that mean that we are all the same? Does that mean we are all at the same level? No, it does not. There are people that are not at the same level as you are. You know that. You look around and you see them. And there are people that are at a level that's more evolved than where you are, because you look around and you see them. And that's not a faculty if someone's better or worse. It's there are people in different positions. That's important for some reason. You know, with the wealthy man being, you know, what does it mean for our guides and the gods to bless us? They bless us with thoughts. They bless us with things to do that benefit others, that take us on a journey of self-discovery. You know, there's lots of things that happen in our doing, in our participating, in our taking action, in our living, in our addressing, in our looking at, in our encountering, that yield a lot that we didn't think was there. And the message in this reading is that you are gonna have some change here, right, with community. And this, like, you know, this is a strange deck. I always find this deck, whenever I see guides ask for this deck, I'm like, really? That energy is weird, because it's like this human energy. This deck is like, always strikes me as like human-y kind of vibes, like persons, and like, you know, the stickiness of that. But this guide will bring in change for everyone, I think, at a certain point. Wow, that's interesting. Main male and change. Huh? Let me just get like some context, because I would like to see context. And then we're going to leave it there. We're going to get some context. We're going to let it be. So just to kind of bring some structure back around with this and talk to you about the process that we just went through, because that's what I'm teaching you with this reading more than I am, you know, the message is sort of secondary to wanting you to see the process. Something spooky, scary, you know, something goes spooky, you know, in the environment, or, you know, a situation where like that thing or that feeling won't go away and you don't know what to do. There's a reason. There's something that is trying to reveal itself. Not everything in the ecosystem feels bright light spectacular. Sometimes it's musky. Sometimes it's shape-shifting. And if it's a shapeshifter, its job entails that you're not getting a fix on it. You know what I mean? That it's fixing you instead. And so let's get this the last parts of this message, because there is an emancipation here with the Nine of Cups. And that's what we're going to get here. Many hands of the goddess. Okay, let's get a couple more cards. Book of Changes. Okay, so that goes with that. And there's also a journey and distant horizons. So some of us are on quite a journey here. All right, let's just see what that is. All right, so I'm going to get the clarifiers. I'm just going to read the clarifiers very directly. So with the wealthy man and the distant horizons, again, the influence of this god is that this god has wealth for me, energetically, again, talents, gifts, inspiration, and a brilliant idea, like a breakthrough, you know, innovation. That's going to be wealth. You know, someone's pocket full of heavy change that people judge them by doesn't mean a damn thing. With the distant horizons, you know, there is this energy comes from far away. That means it's so old that it doesn't even have a story and it doesn't even have a name. And so for those of you that have, like, I can just sense Celticness, like that's the vibe that I'm getting. Our ancestral gods, some of them don't have names. some of what it means to connect with the cultures that like we are somehow divorced from because of being drafted into a Western, you know, civilization. Sometimes we don't have the names, and we can only kind of like look at the process, which is like feeling with, think about the blindfold that is the veil, feeling with your hands. What is it? Okay, it's musky. It's kind of, is it really scary? Well, sometimes there are predator things that you can't deal with, you need help with, you ask for help. Okay, that's for sure. One of the biggest caveats to everything that I'm telling you is that if at any point it gets too scary for you, you ask for help. That means that part of the journey, part of what the spooky scary is teaching you, is that you can't do things alone all the time. And sometimes you need another set of eyes, and sometimes you need the support of another person, and sometimes you need to reach out and ask for help. Doesn't mean that the person that you're asking for help is going to give you the right answer and everything's going to be okay. No, sometimes that person says no, and it means that somebody else has the answer because they didn't. And maybe you don't understand it, but the rejection shuts you down. Like there's a lot of things that we need to learn some perseverance in getting that, And so when we think about this change in the main male, it's funny, wealthy man, main male change. I'm considering that like patriarchy in a way because of the way that this deck is. Worldview, there's change. And the clarification on change in the main male is, you have been here before, lived many lifetimes. Your soul has learned skills in past lives and developed abilities and talents. It is time to reawaken and reclaim those past life gifts. Kuan Yin's grace, protection, and assistance help you now to release past life wounds so that you may bring past life powers to aid your present life purpose. So this change, this narrow bridge between one shadowy place into a place of clarity, between unknown and spooky, because I don't understand it, into I get it and I'm not afraid of it because I see it clearly. This has happened before and it will happen again. And that like breaking through and breakthrough after breakthrough, mortification into something new is born of it. This is not something that is brand new. So this is an ancestral God that is igniting things and bringing gifts from past life wounds that bring past life powers to aid your present life purpose. And so when we engage with these genes that have been suppressed, when we engage with these parts of ourselves and these ancestral gods that were so instrumental in developing that part of our evolution overall, it's going to be sensory sometimes. And in that sensory experience, there's a developing gift and a gift in the process of seeking and finding. And so with this wealthy man with these talents, even if they seem distant, like you can sort of draw a picture, but not really, you know what I mean? Even if it's like an inkling, you desire, you want something to do with this, but you know it's there, but it has to move distant. I'll show you distant horizons to this place of being able to actualize and move into those talents. We get the sound of the fierce flute. Discernment empowers you to make choices that are aligned with your intentions. Like a fierce-sounding flute cutting through all vibrations with purity and intent, your discernment allows you to stay true to your values without getting caught up in distraction, to grow spiritually through love, joy, peace, and abundance. Make high vibrational choices that feel good to you. This is going to be self-actualization, the form holds. Excuse me, sometimes like my throat chakra does weird things when I'm channeling. And sometimes the only way to like kind of loosen up a little bit is to cough, which sounds terrible, but so the discernment here is about boundaries. It's about like, our discernment takes us from being porous and influenced by everything and taking on everything that we can find that is interesting to try and like find ourselves. Discernment is the process of finding ourselves. Essentially figuring out what works for us, what doesn't work for us, what is in resonance, what is out of resonance, what are we using to run away from ourselves versus what are we using to encounter ourselves. What is the difference? This is important. An encounter is usually a little bit of, challenging. An encounter with an actual other person, there's like, hi, getting to know you, not sure. Like there's a little bit of a moment, an encounter with something that, asks us to grow is a moment of I'm not already grown. And so it's always entails some sort of like process. Escape is there's no process, like we just lie, like it's just escape from that and into candy canes and bubble gum and anything that forms a distracting enough substance to keep us from those encounters. So like that's what I'm seeing here with like discernment. You know, discernment is having enough of those encounters that you know yourself, you know what you're capable of, you know when you encounter a spooky that you can, you know, come into a place of understanding through investigation. You know, that sometimes that investigation is confronting, you know, sometimes that investigation leads you to ask for help so that you can get wisdom from somebody who is not where you are. You know, people are not all the same. People are not equal. Like, that is true and untrue at the same time. We are equal in intrinsic holy value, but we are not equal in skill set, you know, mastery. We are not equal in maturation. We are not equal in development. And so sometimes we need help from those who are in a position to help. And that means we're like, that's taking your ego and checking it occasionally. And so with this, discernment empowers you to make choices that are aligned with your intentions, like a fierce sounding flute cutting through all vibrations. Like, this God energy is there to sort of direct, you know, what it means for you to discover something on your own, or what it means for you to be directed to seek help. And that, but either way, it's about creating that expansion, right? And so that's what this wealthy distant horizons. How do you make how do you get from wanting to use these talents that you kind of feel, you know, that you have, you know, how do you close the skill gap on those distant horizons from a place of not having income to unexpected income to having that income? And it's discernment. And again, self-knowledge, discernment, you know, resonance, you know, intuition. That's this work. And that's going to be prayer. And that's going to be working with the gods that are there to work with you. And in this case, rediscovering, you know, a God that does not have a name, but gets form and shape through the investigation and the naming. And so that's what this process is. That's how you travel the distance from I don't know to I know. Even in this reading, I don't know to I know, we investigate. Many hands of the goddess. The goddess Kuan Yin brings blessings to multiple projects and many different parts of your life and consciousness, beloved. She is not limited to one task at a time. Do not be afraid to surrender into her guiding wisdom and creative genius, for there is much that you can accomplish together, and she is assisting you now. You have help of the community. And if you don't have help of the community, that's something that the community, you know what I mean? But like the occupation, you doing your job well, is assisted by community. Many hands of the goddess. I'm just going to leave that there. With the Book of Changes and the journey and the thoughts and the unexpected income, we have Jupiter going direct today, which I think is very significant, because that really does mean that your work is paying off. Your work will pay off. That's that kind of energy. And so when we trust that there is not, it's not just you and the decisions that you make wrong or right that get you to the outcome that you desire. That is an individualistic belief, that if you chose right, you would get there. If you did it this other way, that you would have achieved something. If you're not having this outcome, then it's because you made the wrong decision, or you did the wrong thing, or you're doing it wrong, or you're getting punished. There's a process of self-discovery in whatever's going on, and what's going to stick and what's going to hold is what is true to form, and what is true to form doesn't break down in that mortification process. It's a form that holds because it is strong, because it develops into a place of clarity. It congeals, it hardens. And so that is not something that you do on your own. You know, this is a big reading about trust, and, you know, the development of that temple, that victory in the development of that temple, and that communication that you are guided to provide. You can be unguarded. There are many hands involved in what it means to like get you there. And the Book of Changes speaks of a change that is coming in, where this journey will begin to yield, you know, where this inspiration will begin to yield something tangible. The Book of Changes. Just like a beautiful but unusual melody, the divine plan is unfolding through your life. Although it isn't always predictable, Kuan Yin is guiding you in the right direction. Even if you do not fully understand what is happening in your life right now, allow Kuan Yin to bless you with trust in the unfolding of your own divine path. That's this whole thing. And that's you know, so this is a funny reading. You know, I'm a part of our collective, and so that, you know, we are collectively receiving wisdom, right? But at the same time, I did not open up that canopy. So what came through here was about really showing through the process, you know, what that investigation with divination can look like. And there's a lot of wisdom that came through that process as well. The message that came through that demonstration was also really good. But it does speak to, like, we can trust the energies that we don't understand. Uncertainty is not danger. Certainty is not control. And everything between where we started and where we're going involves levels of predestination that we have to be able to trust. And so that trust means that we are not always guarded. What does guarded mean? Trying to control. What does control mean? You don't trust. Does that mean that you are porous and you let everything take advantage of you and everybody can be mean and they can get away with it and you're not going to say anything? No. Discernment. You are given power to hold your talents and your strengths victoriously when you form boundaries, and those boundaries are a form, and those forms are not porous, and it's a form that holds, and it becomes a manifestation of who you are really developing into. And so, like, that discernment is really important. And so with that, hand of fire and stoke your inner flame, use your words consciously, and energy of play. I think, you know, I'm always trying to work towards this energy of play with these readings. I always want to sort of be in a more open, happy sort of a place, and, you know, a more bubbly place with them. It is really difficult, I think, to do that because a lot of the stuff that we work on is really serious. And the reason that I work on serious stuff is because I don't see it being done elsewhere. And I think that spirituality is serious business. And so this conjunction here, you know, moving from a place of shadow and a place of non-communicated and a place of not seeing the value of, or, like, you know, not knowing who you are, into a place of who you are, crossing that bridge is assisted. It's helped. You have an energy that is with you. I have an energy that is with me. It means you have an energy that's with you. And that energy knows what's going on. It knows the vision that it is leading. And so with that, I'm going to leave that there. And then, you know, there's something I wanted to say, because it's been kind of breaking my heart for sort of a really long time with these efforts. These readings are sort of long, you know, they're sort of unusual. And they're not trying to be like everybody else. They're not trying to, like, pit against what everybody else is doing, but they are kind of, like, unique. And, like, every week, pretty much, like, every single week, I come in and I look at my analytics and I see hundreds of hours of watch time. Meaning that the material, like, you know, I want you to sort of picture a arena, right? And you can see, like, how many people go into the arena, and then you can see how many hours are watched in the arena. And I get very few likes, and I don't get a lot of shares, and I don't get a lot of comments, and I accept that. I don't ask, I don't beg, I would never do that. But I also don't grow, and it's really heartbreaking. And so there are people in my Patreon, certainly, and there are people who support my work, and they make this is why I'm here. I would not be here, this would not be here, if not for those people who support me, and I'm so grateful for that support. That cannot be understated. But, you know, I've also been praying and talking to my gods and being like, you know, I keep on feeling this feeling of, like, creating these nutritious, elaborate meals and bringing these meals and feeding people and sitting there starving, you know. And it's not that I want praise or accolades, and I don't want worship, and I certainly don't want to be a cult leader or even a guru. But the only thing that the like button is applause. Thank you. You know, that was meaningful. That helped me. And then it helps me grow, you know. The only thing a comment is a response that, you know, if you were fed, if it did offer something nutritious, if you were able to bring that into your life and be nourished by it, then something like dropping a comment or a like or a share, or even telling people, you know, hey, there's somebody who really helps me week after week, that helps me. And that's generosity. And so if it's hard to do those things, you know, I'm not sure why that is, you know, but I do know, you know, getting up on stage, you know, figuratively, like, week after week, and seeing that people are watching, that the length, the hours watched are significant, but the engagement is almost nothing. Like, it's like I get very hurt by that, and maybe I shouldn't, and maybe I'm too sensitive, and, you know, that's something that I should perhaps learn from. But I'm sharing that here because I'm looking at the venom, and I've been thinking about this venom for a long time, and it's been poisoning me for a long time. And so just by communicating this, I'm not expecting people to turn around and like and share compulsively or feel an obligation to do so. The only thing that I'm going to ask people, and the only ask I'm going to bring, is that if you were fed, if it did nourish you, if it did bring you something that you were able to grow with, and if it did produce like something that helped you, then understand that every week that I sit down and pour time into this, that I need some kind of, like, you know, like it has to, there has to be some reciprocity that, you know, if you watched it and it helped you, that you say that really helped me, so that my channel can actually grow, because it doesn't. And it's definitely devastating. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It does make me angry, and I work on it every week. But it's not your responsibility to, you know, whatever, anything. There's no codependence there. Just if it gave you something, just drop a like. That's it. That's it. You know, it's not, I don't need thanks. You know, I just need a simple like. That's all I ever need. Or follow even, because there's a lot more people that watch these that don't actually follow me as well. And so if it's helping, you know, those are pieces of generosity that have nothing to do with money, like and follow, that really actually give back, you know. And so that's where I'm going to leave this. And so with that, I send you on your way. And for those of you that support the channel, God bless you. God has blessed you. That means that I can bless others with the gifts that I have to offer. It's a net, you know. All right, so let's leave it there. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week.